Hi, I'm Gary White for Central Kentucky Television. I'm here with State Senator Jimmy Higdon of the 14th District, which includes Marion County as well as Nelson County in our area, but also several areas. You go all the way from Casey County all the way up to Louisville,
That's
portions
right.
of, right?
From Fishing Creek to Fern Creek. Fishing Creek's in southern Casey County. It's a tributary to the Lake Cumberland, so cover a lot of area.
A long district. And we're going to talk about some of the stuff that's going on in his district, and also about some of the bills that were passed and have gone into effect recently as well from the past legislative session. But let's start off talking about, I know we've been talking about this on and off for a few years, it seems now, I guess, is the pipeline that's proposed, a possibility of a natural gas pipeline, correct?
It's natural gas liquids. It's a natural gas pipeline as we speak. Kinder Morgan petitioned the federal government, or FERC, Federal Energy Regulatory Committee, to decommission that pipeline, and they did do that. They petitioned to abandon that pipeline as a natural gas pipeline. They're in the process of petitioning the FERC, Federal Energy Regulatory Committee, and the Department of Transportation to repurpose that line to allow them to. The natural gas was all going to the north. It came from the Gulf, and there's 5 pipelines that pass through Marion County, and all 5 heading toward the northeast. And what Kinder Morgan is petitioning the federal government to allow them to reverse the flow on the number 1 pipe that comes through Marion County, which was installed pre-World War II. Anyway, they're asking to allow them to reverse the flow. Instead of natural gas going north, they want to send south. They want to send the natural gas liquids, which is a byproduct of fracking, and it will come down from the Marcellus oil shale fields in Pennsylvania, Ohio, and West Virginia, and they want to get that to the Gulf Coast. So that product contains, it's a raw product, and it contains oil, it contains butane, I think acetylene, and propane, and they send that to a refinery down on the Gulf Coast that will separate those materials. They'll remove the butane and the propane and the remove those, and then they will take what's left over, and they will use that. They will ship that out to use to make plastics. And kind of most of our plastic is made from petroleum byproducts, and that's what they'll use this for, to make plastics. But so anyway, there's several very explosive gases in that mixture. But like I said, they send them down to the Gulf Coast to refine that and separate them.
And the issue for a lot of people is, as you said, they're currently, as we're sitting in Lebanon, in your house in Lebanon, and possibly underneath the ground here or around us, there have been pipes that have been shipping natural gas for decades.
That's correct.
And however, what they're now looking to do is to transport the natural gas liquids, which is potentially more combustible or can potentially have more issues. Is that correct?
Yeah, and of course, with natural gas and living in this area for years, we've experienced explosions in the area. They don't happen that often, but they have happened. The most recent one was in Nifley, Kentucky. There's been some in Marion County over the years. But typically what you have is an explosion and a large crater in the ground. And that's pretty much it. There's a big explosion, and the gas is shut off, and unless you're right there at the explosion site, there's not a lot of danger to you. But with these natural gas liquids, I think the exposure area is a lot larger. Plus, this is a oil type product and not a gas, so it can get into the ground. Right. And we have a karst type terrain in Marion County, and this pipe through Marion County, one of my concerns is that it goes through our watershed. We get all of our water from Calvary, and that pipe is very close to the Calvary area.
So it could
And,
compromise the water supply.
It could compromise our water supply. So, I basically have three concerns about this pipeline. Number one is its age. It's in a pipe that's over 70 years old. That's concern number one. Concern number two is the safety of my constituents and the constituents of Marion County and points beyond. The pipeline actually runs through 5 congressional districts. It comes in from West Virginia and goes all the way through and goes out to the south of us into Tennessee. So it runs through quite a bit of Kentucky, and so I'm concerned about the safety of our constituents. And the third concern is environmental concerns. There's a big outcry or a lot of opposition to it in Boyle County because it runs under Harrington Lake. Again, that's their water supply in Boyle County and other counties. And and they have the same type of terrain as Marion County, and there's concerns there about the age of the pipe, safety of the constituents, and environmental effects that it could have on a rupture. And with this type of pipeline, it has a history. There have been ruptures, so that is a concern, especially with the 70-year-old line. And that's one of the things that I've been trying to bring people's attention to. Like I said, right now there's FERC is doing an open period for comments for people requesting a full environmental impact study, and I've been pushing for that for some time now. I know a lot of people have written to FERC. That period is closing very soon for that written comments. So we should hear sometime in September whether or not FERC is going to go a step further and require the full environmental impact. And like I said, I've been pushing for that. I know Judge Daugherty and Representative Mills have also had meetings, and I know Representative Mills had a meeting in Frankfort, had a committee meeting where Joe Livers and Gene Lanham. Of course, Gene is deceased now, but it comes through his property in Gravel Switch, and he was, as a property owner, was very concerned about it. And Gene and Joe Livers, both property owners, went up to talk to the committee about this pipeline. I've been to Washington, D.C. I've met with all 8 members of our congressional delegation. Plus, I had a meeting with Jerry Abramson's staff to talk about this pipeline and encouraging FERC to do that full environmental impact study, which will look at the age of the pipe and the proximity that people live to the pipeline and our terrain here in Marion County, and it is a concern. And so hopefully Federal Energy Regulatory Committee will look at that and take our advice and do that full environmental impact study. Really, Gary, like I said, Marion County has passed a resolution. Marion County Fiscal Court passed a resolution that was not in favor of this pipeline being repurposed, and they've sent that into FERC, and Bull County has done the same thing. They've sent that comment into to FERC. I've commented to FERC. I know I've talked to many here in Marion County and other places that have commented to FERC about asking for that full environmental impact study, because one of the things that we've found out, this is a interstate pipeline controlled entirely by the federal government, the Department of Transportation and FERC. City, county, and state government have very little control over this pipeline, simply because it's an interstate pipeline that's controlled by the federal government. So, right now I've had several calls. There's a lot of activity in this area right now. The Kinder Morgan folks are in town. They're doing a lot of routine maintenance and replacing a lot of pipe. And I think that's something they typically do from time to time. But I think with the issue at hand, we're talking about repurposing. There's a lot of concerns that with the work that they're doing right now is preparing for the repurposing of the pipeline. I don't have the answer to that. I don't know. I do know the pipe that on the southern edge of the city of Lebanon is pipeline number 5. And it's not and they're replacing a large section of that pipeline. That is not the pipeline that's proposed to be repurposed.
So before when we were talking about this, it was the pipeline that they were proposing was a new pipeline. Is that correct?
That's correct. That was the Bluegrass pipeline.
That was the Bluegrass pipeline.
And that was the one that came through Nelson County and parts of the northern edge of Marion County near Loretta. That was a completely different pipeline. That was a new pipeline being proposed to...
With the same purpose.
Same purpose, to take these natural gas liquids to the Gulf Coast. And that one was pretty much abandoned because of the eminent domain issue. To get through a lot of the property, it was a new pipeline. They had to have, a lot of property owners simply didn't want that natural gas pipeline going through their property, and they refused to deal with the Bluegrass pipeline folks. So they were threatening the use of eminent domain. That went to court, and the courts ruled that Kentucky law is very specific. If it's, if it doesn't have a purpose, if it's not for public use, then you can't use eminent domain. So that project pretty much died, and now this repurposed project, this pipe is already in the ground. They already have the right-of-way for this pipe. So this one has been I guess a little easier for them to try to do, but they still have some, hurdles to jump. And like I said, especially getting it past FERC and the Department of Transportation to allow them to repurpose this.
For that reason. So is it currently, I know it exists already, but is it being utilized for the other purpose until they transition it, or is it shut down right now?
Right now, it's officially abandoned.
It's abandoned, okay.
And so there is nothing going through that pipe right now at all. It's dormant as we speak.
Okay. And so we're going to have to wait and see what's decided by the federal agency, right?
That's correct.
In September, we'll have a better idea whether, if they do allow it to go to the next step.
And Kinder Morgan has petitioned, FERC and the Department of Transportation to repurpose that pipeline, to allow them to reverse the flow and to send the natural gas liquids. Instead of from south to north, that product will come from the north and go south to the Gulf. Okay.
And then, so people can still submit their comments if they want to?
We're right at the cutoff date. I think the cutoff date for that is September the 2nd. So probably if they wanted to do a written comment, it's got to be in writing. So when this is aired, we're probably, pretty much too late to get in any written comments. But I've done several articles on it. It's been out there for quite a while for the process to write to FERC, and I know a lot of folks have taken advantage of that and have written to FERC and have expressed their concerns, not just in Marion County, but I know Bull County's been very active in participating on that too. And that's one of the I guess the things that disappoint me most is there's just not a lot of concern outside, the counties that are affected by it. There's concern obviously in Marion County, there's concern in Bull County, but you get past that and there's just not a lot of concern. It's been very difficult to get other legislators and other folks to support looking at this issue and drawing attention to it, that it is a very important issue, especially for this area. And like I said, our congressional delegation, they were all very gracious to meet with me and listened. And Senator Paul has been very active in following up with me to check on the progress. And so, but anyway, it's been an interesting project. Like I said, I think that's probably the most interesting part, is that outside the area affected by it, there's been very little concern.
So hopefully in September we'll find more about whether that project will have the opportunity to move ahead or not.
We
And then
should
keep
know
posted.
sometime. We should know sometime in September what the federal government decides to do on that. I would, if Kinder Morgan gets a green light, I could, I think there will probably be some other things done to try to block it. I don't know right now what all that would entail, but I do think there's some people very concerned about this pipeline and would don't want to see it come through rural Kentucky, especially this part of Kentucky where we have the karst terrain where if you had a break, it could get into the groundwater very easily.
And be a very expensive fix, or if possible.
True.
Yeah. So we'll keep you up to date on that pipeline that is proposed for going through our area potentially, and let you know how that kind of goes out in September.